through the night, and within a few days I decided that's what I'm going to be a psychoanalyst, and I let the animated movies go. I got to a situation where I actually became very disappointed with psychoanalysis. Initially, not the theory, it was more the practice. You know, I realized how long it takes, how much money it costs, and that even after years the results are not exactly breathtaking. I had 7 years of training psychoanalysis, 3 times a week. And if you ask me, did it change you? I would say, well, I changed, but 7 years you change anyway. There's no conviction within me that there was some connection between what I was doing in the analytic sessions and any kind of changes in my life. And I loved every minute of it. I loved to analyze my dreams and finding that every slip of the tongue had a deep meaning. But I was in a situation where I started regretting that I chose psychiatry, psychoanalysis. I started kind of nostalgically thinking back about the animated movies, and I was at the time at the psychiatric department of the School of Medicine in Prague, and one day we got a box from Sandoz pharmaceutical companies in Switzerland. We did some work with their other preparations like malaria, which is a tranquilizer. So they sent us a complimentary box full of ampules, and we open it and it says LSD-25. It's a very mysterious kind of a name. And there was a letter which came with it describing the history of this, which you probably know, Dr. Albert Hoffman, was the chemist involved in ergot, worked with ergot alkaloids, was creating different derivatives. And the 25th derivative of this lysergic acid, which is the active alkaloid in ergot, was LSD. And he initially synthesized it in 1938, and it was sent to the pharmacologist, and they ran it through the routine tests and said nothing interesting there, and suggested the discontinuation. And he somehow could not get that off his mind, this particular substance. He continued to produce more derivatives, but he had this really deep feeling that with this particular substance they must have left something out. In our later discussions, he said, I didn't discover LSD. LSD called me, and didn't let him go. And so 1943, he became so strong that he decided to create another sample, and during the time he started feeling funny and went through an episode lasting several hours of powerful emotions and visions and so on. And to make a long story short, then he had the suspicion that maybe somehow he intoxicated himself by the substance that he was working with, although he couldn't imagine how that could have happened. He was a very proper Swiss professor. When you work with new substances, you don't lick your fingers. So he thought maybe at one point his eye was itching, and then he himself touched his eye, and it was such a powerful substance that it was enough. But anyway, so several days later, he actually took a dose that he said, being a conservative person, considered to be minuscule, which in his assessment was 250 micrograms. I don't know how many of you relate to the number. Later, when we worked with LSD, this was considered a big dose, requiring hours of preparation. Really two people assisting and keeping people overnight, keeping casually. There's a beautiful story of his. Within an hour, he couldn't work anymore. Asked his assistant to take him home. And it's a great description of his bicycle ride through the streets of Basel. 250 micrograms. And, when he came home, he thought he was dying, and he thought his neighbor was witch and was hexing